Well, I do want to talk a little bit more about the Hearing Protection Act because you've got some very cool information on something you were involved with.
Right. Well, our organization, Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership, is made up of physicians and other healthcare professionals. You don't have to be a doctor to be in Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership. And I am the membership director, so I'm in charge of getting other people to join us. There's a group of doctors who are kind of in the leadership. One guy who was also at the NRA meeting, he edits our blog, and we put out a blog post twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We do Facebook every day. Our website is a really an excellent resource. We talk about stuff like, what do you do when your doctor asks you if you own a gun? What can you do? There's an article about that. Is gun violence a public health issue? No, it's not. We explain why. But what we do a lot of is we look at the stuff that comes out from the AMA and Bloomberg School of Public Health, and we analyze it and we critique it and show the flaws and explain why it's a bunch of garbage, because that's a lot of times that's what it is. It's very biased stuff, and it's funded by Bloomberg, most of it. And so, you have to take that stuff with a grain of salt. We talk about how they bias their conclusions and how they ask questions in a way that it's already a foregone conclusion what people are going to answer. For instance, you can ask somebody, do you think it's okay for people to have guns in bars? Or ask the question, is it okay for concealed license holders to carry in a bar if they don't drink? Those are two separate questions with very, very different answers. And this is the kind of stuff that we point out, and we help show the average population what this is all about. We've also been involved in 1996, Dr. Tim Wheeler, who founded Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership, he testified in front of Congress and got the CDC defunded, doing this biased research. So he's one of the people that were responsible for that. We do amicus curiae briefs. We've done that in the Woolschlager case, which is the Docs versus Glocks in Florida. We've been on a lot of different network shows. I get on a lot of radio shows and podcasts. So our job is really to put the word out from the Second Amendment side of the medical profession. And we've got lots of good people who contribute, and we're still looking for more. We want a large pool of people who can help us. This Hearing Suppression Act paper that we did, it's basically a position paper written by 4 ear, nose, and throat surgeons. Who more to be an expert in hearing than people who deal with ear, nose, and throat? And 2 of the doctors were actually neuro-otologists. Those are people who deal with the neurologic side of the house, the conductive, the neurologic hearing loss, the nerve-based hearing loss. So these guys are experts, and this paper is actually, cited, has 17 references, and so we talk about that noise-induced hearing loss is a true public health problem, and we know that there's a causal relationship between loud noise exposure and irreversible hearing loss, and we have to understand this kind of hearing loss is irreversible. You can't put a hearing aid on to fix it. You can't do whatever. Once that hearing's gone, it's gone. And it's really not treatable. So prevention is the important thing. And it's also the most prevalent service-connected disability among veterans. So, I mean, we're all veterans. We've all been exposed to that noise, whether it's firearms, engine noises in vehicles. I was in the Navy. We had ship noises. We had pumps. We had fans. We had the shafts. We had aircraft, and in fact, I was in charge of the hearing protection program on the ship. We all had our different color earplugs. You had the green ones and the orange ones, and the ones of different sizes. And we had people that were monitoring that stuff. Per the CDC, 15% of adults age 18 and over, nearly 38 million people, have hearing problems. So it's a big problem. And over 100 million Americans who own guns are at risk for this gunshot-induced noise hearing loss. And also the bystanders are affected by this too. So if you're shooting and somebody's standing 15 feet away, the noise from a rifle is enough to cause immediate hearing loss. So nearly all gunshot noise can cause immediate hearing loss. Maybe a 22 might not be loud enough, but pretty much all center fire is.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that the blast, the actual shock wave from the explosion of the gunpowder is 10,000 times stronger than the actual noise on the ear. And so a suppressor actually dampens that blast by running the stuff through baffles. And so, most firearms are between 140 and 170. Some, even the big rifles, are 180 decibels. And so something less than 140, probably around 120, is probably considered safe. Although there is a cumulative effect of lesser noise over time. For instance, the guy who runs a jackhammer will end up with hearing loss over time because he's constantly exposed to a lesser degree of noise. Mm-hmm. And so, and if you look at all the other things that the government is trying to regulate, OSHA, well, anything in noise in the workplace, OSHA is all over. Why not firearms? Why is it that firearms are not treated like any other noise in the workplace? Mm-hmm. Good question, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's very interesting. We know that the muzzle-mounted suppressors, they provide 20 to 30 decibel reduction in the noise, and earmuffs and things like that are not as good. You and I have probably bumped our earmuffs when we're shooting our rifles and lose our seal, and we get a ringing ear afterwards. Mm-hmm. How many times does that happen to us? That's ringing in your ears. That's like your nerves screaming in pain because they've been injured and damaged. And then Hollywood would tell you that criminals are going to put suppressors on their guns and they're going to be silent, and that's a bunch of baloney. We all know that. It goes from being very loud to loud. And then, of course, you add this, 4 to 6 inch thing on the end of your pistol, and it makes it pretty hard to hide the stupid thing. You can't stick it in a holster. You can't, it's difficult to hide. And so a pistol, I mean, that's the thing about a pistol is that you can hide it, that it's easily concealable. Well, when you have a suppressor on it, you can forget it. So that's the thing. So, the whole argument that it'll promote crime is a bunch of baloney too. This is, this whole hearing, the NFA thing was a thing that ginned up by Hollywood. They're trying to blame the gangsters in Chicago, and this is the way they were trying to snag them with these federal laws. And of course,
right.
Those guys don't. Modern criminals now, they don't obey the laws. So it's really just the normal everyday person who's snagged behind this thing. And we all have to pay our $200 tax stamp for our NFA items and wait. I just got a suppressor a couple of weeks ago, and it took 10 months for something that is there to protect my hearing.
Right.
There's something wrong. There's something wrong with that.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's something wrong with that. So what do we do with this information? Well, first of all, you can find this information on drgo.us, and it's right there. There's the paper, and also something called an executive summary, which is kind of a one-page synopsis, pretty much what I just talked about just now. And you can take that and you can send it to your U.S. representative and your U.S. senators and say, hey, we want this thing passed. Here's the evidence behind it. This is scientific evidence. This isn't Bloomberg evidence. Okay, this is the real deal. And we'd like you to co-sponsor or at least vote for this bill when it comes up. And I've done this myself, and my state senator Ted Cruz actually is signed on as a co-sponsor now. So I'm hoping that maybe I had some influence. I don't know. I'm probably dreaming, but the bottom line is this is something that we all should look at and read, and this is intellectual ammunition. So you could talk to your friends when they start spewing the Hollywood garbage about oh yeah, it's going to make it silent. It's going to be piff piff piff. Like in Hollywood, when it's bang, 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 and it's still a pretty loud bang, you can straighten out your media biased friends who have been brainwashed by the Hollywood folks. So this is the kind of the thing that we're looking at, and this is the kind of things that Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership does. And and again, being the membership director, We're looking for people. We're looking for doctors, and it's not just medical doctors. You can be a podiatrist, a chiropractor, a dentist. It doesn't matter. Even PhDs. We even have a couple lawyers.
Can you be, hey Doc? Can you be a former medic for the Army?
Absolutely. Anybody who's involved in the healthcare profession, all the professionals. We have technicians, we have nurses, we have all kinds of folks. We have a bunch of EMTs, and they're a good bunch of folks. And we really want, even if you don't want to participate, just joining helps our numbers, and we can we'll have more of a voice. And we're working on some benefits too, which is kind of nice. We'll see. We kind of got some plans in the works early on, but our group is very involved in trying to influence things and to educate. We're really an educational group. We really want to educate the general population, and we want to educate healthcare professionals.
That's a great dual role. I will make sure to get both the main webpage and then also the link directly to that article up in the show notes for this, and then cross-post it over to our Facebook page so people can make sure to check that out.
Great, thank you so much.
Now, is Doctors for Responsible Gun Owners, is this an autonomous organization, or are they directly involved with anybody else?
We are right now a project of the Second Amendment Foundation.
Okay.
Back in 1992, when Dr. Wheeler started this, they were part of the Claremont Institute. And then there was a parting of the ways at one point in time. And then the Second Amendment Foundation actually took us under their wing. And so we are a subsidiary of SAF, but we're independent as well. I mean, we have our own, we're all, 503C, and we're tax deductible and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to, because I thought I had heard something about the Second Amendment Foundation being somewhat involved, and I really believe in their mission. So having that sort of relationship between the two organizations, I think makes everything that much more powerful.
Right, and Alan Gottlieb's organization is a powerhouse in our community, and so just having him as a kind of a mentor and just to help us when we need access, boom, we can always ask him, and he can help out. And frankly, as things go on, we're becoming more and more of a go-to organization. We get a lot of requests from press and academia and a few other things. Although kind of the standard northeastern academia is against us. The AMA and the American Academy of Pediatrics and American College of Surgeons, they are all biased against the Second Amendment. And they're progressive organizations, and they don't reflect their membership. I could certainly join the AMA anytime I wanted to. They send me a thing every 6 months to get them to join. I will not join them because they don't represent me. American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I do pediatric orthopedics. Even we have to watch out for them too. There was an article a couple months ago in one of our journals that was very biased. It was about children and gunshot wounds, and it was out of Connecticut. Well, the bias was very thick. Of course, they have the age of patients from 0 to 24 or something like that. Well, in Hartford and in New Haven, 15 to 24, that means gangbanger. Okay, so we're dealing with gang violence, and they don't address that issue. They just address by the age and all this kind of stuff. And so this is the kind of biases that we're talking about. And so it's very simple. You can pick your population to skew the numbers to get what you want. Now, if they took out everybody from 18 and up, all of a sudden the results may be very different. Although there's probably a subset in there that are gangbangers. You get young teenage kids in the inner cities. A lot of those kids are gangbangers, and they get shot because they're in the wrong place because they're hanging out with other gangbangers. And when there's a drive-by or turf war or something, these guys are getting hit.
Right.
And so,
Right.
so you have to look at these papers with a grain of salt, and you got to really, really analyze them and try to figure out, okay, now, how are they throwing the curveball at us to get the bias where the way they want to do it? And so this is the kind of stuff that Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership looks at, and we analyze, and then we'll either publish on our blog or we'll do a post somewhere, and we are out there fighting the fight against the bias of the Bloomberg machine. And when you have a school of public health named after you, how much money do you think that costs you? Millions and $100 million probably.
Yeah.
So you think those guys are going to publish pro-gun stuff? If their sugar daddy is the king of anti-Second Amendment, no. So and frankly, they're going along with it because that's their bias too. And we fight this, and this is why a lot of us have gotten into this organization and into the fight.
Well, the old saying, whenever you want to look at any particular study or anything, is follow the money.
Right. And then there's lies, damn lies, and statistics, right?
Exactly. Well, very cool. I'm excited to hear about this. I hadn't caught any episodes about this at all yet, so I'm glad that we got you on, and hopefully could help spread some of this info so the people can send this information into their representatives and try to get everybody on board, at least with the Hearing Protection Act, if not more.
Right.
And I also know, I think I know a few physicians that might be interested in joining you guys.
Right. That's the thing. We all know doctors who are Second Amendment friendly doctors.
Yep.
And so it's just a matter of bringing up the conversation and saying, hey, did you know about this organization? DRGO.us is the website. Mm-hmm. Or some people like to call it DRGO, DRGO, because that's what, it's DRGO.us. And believe me, we're on the go. We are definitely always on the go. And but it's a good bunch of folks, and we're growing by leaps and bounds. I see all the new memberships coming in. During the NRA, they kept popping up one after the other. So it was, we've had quite a few people sign up in the last couple of weeks. So it's really good. And some of it, they heard me on this, or they've seen our blog, or they saw it on the at the NRA show or whatever. But and going to the NRA show is just fantastic because you meet all kinds of people from all over the place, different parts of the country, different walks of life. Of course, we met several doctors and nurses and medical people, and it's kind of weird when you walk up to somebody, you say, "Hello, hey, I'm Dr. Edeen." We go, "I know who you are. You don't have to tell me." Mm-hmm. That's kind of shakes you up a little bit, the first couple of times it happens, but it just means that we're getting the word out, and that people are listening, and really what we want to do is get the word out about our organization to the general populace, so that they can do exactly that. They can talk to their Second Amendment friendly doctors and see if they can't get them to join. Some people aren't in a position where they can be out of the closet, so to speak. We have one of our pediatricians writes under a pseudonym because she's afraid of what might happen because of her organization is the American Academy of Pediatrics. They are very anti-Second Amendment. They're the ones that are asking everybody if they own guns, and then they tell them, lock them up with the ammunition separately. Well, geez, that's really good, doctor. What happens if somebody breaks into my house and I'm damaged? Or my family is injured because of your advice. These doctors are practicing outside of their scope of medicine, and we call this a boundary violation because they're using their position as a physician to push a political agenda, and it's unethical. It's an ethical violation, and so as far as I'm concerned, doctors who do that deserve to anything that anybody who's harmed can throw back at them.
Right. Well, that's it. I mean, at the very basic level, I would consider that a violation of the Hippocratic Oath.
Well, they don't really care about that. They're all about political agenda and politics, and they want to push their disarmament agenda. And this is all part of the progressive mindset. Is you have to understand that an armed populace can say no.
Right.
When they say
right.
we all got to do Obamacare. Well, if you're armed and you're an armed populace, you can say, no, we don't. We don't want to do that. We want to get rid of it. And thank goodness we're starting to roll it back. I haven't seen the newest bill, but I'm sure there are still some things that probably need to be done. I would like to see us go back to, fee for service. And, if the insurance companies are involved, great. But, we need to be able to get insurance from any state in the union. So we add competition. I'd like to see some health savings accounts emphasized, so that people can save. That money is their money. It doesn't go to the government. Because as soon as the government gets their hands on stuff, they throw the money away. Look at Social Security. Look what they did to Social Security. It's all IOUs in that fund. There's no fund of Social Security money. It's what you and I pay, every 2 weeks into the system that supports Social Security. There's no Social Security fund. It's all IOUs. It's all smoke and mirrors.
AKA a Ponzi scheme.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There used to be money in the thing, but then they decided to raid it for the public because they're running deficits. So they said, well, we'll just run it for the public treasury, for this year's budget. And then that money was all gone, and now it's exactly right. And that's why the big danger is when you have an elderly growing elderly population and less younger people who are working, you get upside down and pretty soon you run out of money. And that may be happening at some point in time. So it's going to go bankrupt, and well, it's already bankrupt, but I mean, they're not going to be able to pay what they need to pay because there's not enough people paying into the system. So they just borrow more money. Well, we're at $20 trillion in debt now. I can't even imagine how big of a stack of money that is.
Well, I've heard analysis, when it was a smaller amount, and it's just, it's still beyond comprehension to me. But in any case, I've been looking over the DRGO website, and I'm really excited to start working through some of these articles. And
you can look up, by different authors too. You can look up some of the stuff that I've written. I've done a lot of media appearances. I've been on, Armed American Radio, Gun Talk, Gun Freedom Radio, Arms Room Radio, Bill Frady's Lock and Load Radio, Polite Society podcast. I mean, I've been on a ton of podcasts.
Right.
All
right.
wonderful people. And but part of my job is to get the word out. I'm trying to put the word out about our organization so that the more people hear about it, maybe the more people will join.
Exactly.
So.
Well, thank you very much for that awesome talk about your organization, and especially what you guys are doing to help support the Hearing Protection Act.